The first movie made about the Titanic was actually made in 1912, just a month after the actual tragedy took place. Not only was there a movie made about the unprecedented disaster only 30 days after it happened, the movie also starred an actress who was actually on board the Titanic when it sank. Dorothy Gibson was already a very popular actress when she set sail on the Titanic. She began her career as a model and was best known for her work as artist Harrison Fisher's muse. It was her face that was plastered all over magazines, postcards, and other Edwardian merchandise for years. In 1911, Gibson had her big acting break after being hired by Eclair American Company to work as their leading lady. She starred in the hit silent comedy The Easter Bonnet and then the critically acclaimed Hands Across the Sea. Around this time, she caught the eye of producer Jules Brulator, and they began a secretive love affair. Later, it would be Jules Brulator who pushed Gibson into doing the Titanic movie. In the spring of 1912, Gibson was on vacation in Europe with her mother when Brulator wired her to return to America to begin work on 2 new films she was contracted to do. So, Gibson and her mother went to Paris, booked passage on the Titanic, hopped aboard, and set sail on April 10th. On the night the Titanic sank, Gibson was up late playing bridge with a group of New York bankers. But as she was making her way back to her room around 11:40, she later told reporters that she heard a, quote, long-drawn, sickening crunch. She also reported that she decided to investigate the noise, and when she did, she noticed that the ship's deck seemed lopsided, which isn't good. So, she ran back to get her mother, and just as quickly they both ran back to the deck and jumped aboard Lifeboat 7, which was virtually empty at the time. Gibson invited her bridge partners to join her and her mother in the boat, and as fate would have it, Lifeboat 7 ended up being the first lifeboat launched from the ship. They made it safely back to land, but certainly not without experiencing the trauma of the unspeakable tragedy. Gibson later stated, "I will never forget the terrible cry that rang out from the people who were thrown into the sea and others who were afraid for their loved ones." Basically, the day after she made it back to safety on the lifeboat, she was encouraged by her studio and her lover Jules Brulator to make a movie called Saved from the Titanic. She reportedly didn't immediately want to do the film, having barely recovered from the incident herself, but make the movie she did, despite bursting into tears several times during filming, which was shot on a set in Fort Lee, New Jersey. To make matters worse, even though she was already essentially forced to relive the tragedy immediately after it happened, her character in the film wore the same exact clothes Gibson herself had on the night the Titanic sank. Like most films from this era, it was 10 minutes long, and Saved from the Titanic was released a month to the day after the ship sank, making it the fastest film in the history of cinema to tell the story of a national tragedy, which seems like the most dubious of dubious honors. The film itself was not received well. The New York Dramatic Mirror wrote, quote, "The bare idea of undertaking to reproduce in a studio, no matter how well equipped, or by reenacted sea scenes an event of the appalling character of the Titanic disaster with its 1,600 victims, is revolting." But Dorothy Gibson's performance received rave reviews, and was considered her best work in her 20-film career. That's likely because she wasn't really even acting. She was physically and emotionally reliving an unspeakably traumatic event on film. Despite being the second highest paid actress in the industry at the time, Dorothy gave up acting shortly after the release of Saved from the Titanic. She later moved to France, where she became a Nazi sympathizer and allegedly worked in espionage, because real life isn't as tidy as we want it to be. Sadly, due to a fire at Eclair Studios in 1914, most of Gibson's 22 films, including Saved from the Titanic, are lost to history. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel for more of history's weirdness that you won't find in your textbooks. All those textbooks that you had to give back. No one has their textbooks anymore, right? I don't have mine. Anyway, there's this video here, there's this one here, there's more stuff here, there's more good stuff. If you liked it, stick around.